Well, automotive, we're talking about commodities. Yeah, we're talking about also services. It's not just commodities. There are also technical services that you can bring in, CAD drawing and so on. So for me, there's capital equipment, services, components. Yeah, and I've managed for BMW and Land Rover from adhesives to door hinges, to steering wheels, to chemicals, cleaning materials, you name it. I've covered a broad spectrum of categories. And if I was going to suggest how to approach this from an automotive perspective, with regards to this, it would, it's going to be difficult to sort of narrow it down unless we have a sort of retain that broad context. We could give an example. We could use an example. Maybe let's say capital equipment. Yeah. Okay. So I'm the lead category lead for capital equipment, and certain things that you need to consider when procuring capital equipment. So you develop these from the design. You start working with engineers. You start developing with the suppliers, and one of the key things perhaps I always came across was when you develop a commodity with a supplier. This is perhaps a good example. They have to put their IP into the design. Yeah. So they put their IP. We give them the basis, the framework upon which this is what you need to develop this component. It needs to meet this framework, this technical specification. So we give info, they give info, their IP, their know-how, their knowledge. But then who owns that part?
The IP.
It's both parties have put in equal amounts of effort, equal amounts of work. But then who owns the commodity? That always became a tricky negotiation point. And certainly one that's perhaps worth considering as a key factor in category management in automotive, where both parties are putting in IP, and then, of course you can say to the supplier, well, if you come on board, whatever information you share with us, it belongs to us, and we can do whatever we want. We're taking that IP, and the supplier then can no longer use that technology for another client. You can't use it for...
And that approach is not a win-win type of negotiation approach.
Generally not. But what I found...
And they're not going to be happy, eh?
No.
More often than not.
What I found, time is the issue. You set a time frame where you say, well, for 2 or 3 years, we retain the IP. So therefore, we've got that competitive edge for at least a period of time. And thereafter, then you can go out to the market with this technology. Are you okay with that, Mr. Supplier? And that's generally how I've approached that. So that's just one example of category management on the negotiation side as to how you could get around that. Another challenging one was working with sales and marketing. They're always very optimistic people, always very optimistic. We're going to sell 500,000 vehicles in the first year. And then you get your suppliers. You get your suppliers to man up, machine up, tool up, ready to produce 500,000 vehicles, and then we only sell 100,000. And then, of course, as the category lead...
That's marketing for you.
Yeah, optimistic as always. We're going to sell 500,000 of these cars. And then we sell 100,000, so we're 400,000 vehicles down. Suppliers thinking, well, hang on, we budgeted for 500,000. You only sold 100,000. Hey, I'm down. My revenue's down. I've invested money so that you can produce your cars. I'm losing out as the supplier. So those are the kind of tricky negotiations that I've had, including cost savings. Automotive is very well known for its strong cost-saving initiatives. We watch every cent. We know the machine rate of every component. But cost savings, when BMW say you go out to your suppliers and you get a 5% year-on-year cost down reduction, and you go to the suppliers and well, there's not 5% profit in there in the first place. So how do you negotiate out of that? So these are the kinds of discussions we have as category lead. And I'm not sure if that sort of gives you an idea, something you could grab onto and say, that's something we could talk about and talk to.
Okay.
But I do believe that, there's a huge R6 billion fund that's available for people to set up local manufacturing. I do believe that's a relevant subject matter that we really need to talk to and address, because if we're going to get local components to start to build the economy through building up SMMEs to manufacture local components, then we really need to start hitting that nail on the head and really start to address how we can go about, setting up facilities. Because that's the other thing that I used to do, is to work with suppliers who've got a similar capacity or deliver a very similar component to develop that component so that we can meet future demands of a particular component. But we need to focus locally. I think the days are gone now where we're going to be shipping across toothpicks, as this guy.
Man.
Toothpicks and petrol flaps and maybe gear knobs and any small things that are still being imported that really we should be doing locally.